Everyone, this is Jen Paisley, the instructional coach in Pattonville, and I am here to get you trained on explicit instruction this year. We are going to be doing this training asynchronously, and so I wanted to get started by showing you how that's going to look. So I'm going to push out 3 videos, 1 per week for 3 weeks. They're going to all be under 30 minutes, so you can either watch them the week that they come out, or you can wait until the end of, until all 3 of them have been released, and you can watch them all then. It's up to you. I will ask that you fill out a Google form stating that you watched all the videos prior to me coming out to observe you for your explicit instruction. And there's going to be a very short quiz after the 3rd video to show what you've learned, and then you're also going to give up some kick-up feedback about the professional learning, and then you're going to schedule an observation with your instructional coach or EPS, and the EPS is the Effective Practice Specialist for Autism and SEB programs only. So if you don't know who they are, then you're scheduling your observation with me. Okay. So we are doing this asynchronously, and there is no need for inclusion. And also we're not collaborating, so we don't need any norms. I will say, however, that if at any time you have a question about the content of these videos, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask me your questions. I'm happy to answer them. We like to post our outcomes for any professional learning, and we have a student outcome linked to this training. So at the end of the training, we would like 100% of students surveyed for a selected lesson to indicate yes for 3 out of 3 questions. And by the time I go through the 3rd video, I'll show you what that survey looks like and how you will administer it to students. For your impact outcome, the instructional coaches, we would like you to have achieved adequate fidelity as measured by your observation data, and in a few slides I will show you what that form is going to look like, or actually it's more like a resource that you can look at for the components that I will be looking for when I come and observe, or the EPS comes in and observes. Okay, also, like I mentioned in the plan video, there's going to be a very short 3-question quiz at the end of the learning to demonstrate that you know the content. And also there's going to be a kick-up evaluation where we would like at least 85% of you to indicate that you can apply the content strategies of the professional learning to your work. So those are your outcomes. Okay, let's take a look at the supporting documents. Like I had mentioned before, there are things that I'm going to be looking for when I come in and observe, or the EPS comes in and observes. Under the supporting documents, you will find a self-assessment. You can either print it up and write on it, you can just look at it and think it over, but we really want you to think about to what extent right now you're incorporating explicit instruction into your instructional method. So that's what that is. And then we do give you a model lesson plan, and this is a very detailed lesson plan. When I come in to observe, I'm not going to be looking for a lesson plan like this. We wanted to maybe overdo it so that you get a clear picture rather than leave something off that's important. So you can look at the lesson plan, and this should be linked in your email that you got with how to access this video. And then at the bottom here is the observation checklist. This is what I'm going to be looking for. And again, we kind of gave a lot of information so that it could be specific enough. But what I notice is that a lot of you naturally do a lot of these things. So I don't look at this as a lot of new things to add in, maybe just tweak lessons to make them more explicit. Okay. So that is what that is. And you can, like I said, print them up or keep them digitally. Just familiarize yourself with them prior to being observed. Okay. All right. So explicit instruction is all about the delivery of instruction. Here we have the Venn diagram that shows that specially designed instruction is where the content, methodology, and delivery of instruction intersect. And we're going to talk a little bit more in a few slides about specially designed instruction. But before that, I would like you to really take a moment and think, what do you as a special educator do that a general educator doesn't? And if you think about it even further, what makes a special educator special and education special? It really all comes down to that specially designed instruction. There are things that I think personality traits that special educators have that many educators do not. But really, if you think about it, you are also the experts in specially designed instruction. So we got the term specially designed instruction. It actually came from IDEA. And this definition is straight in IDEA that says that specially designed instruction is to address the unique needs of a child with a disability and ensure their access to the general ed curriculum so that they can meet the educational standards of the public agency that apply to all children. So that would be the Department of Education and, IDEA. If I click this link, and you have access to this slideshow, but if you click the link, it doesn't take you to anything specifically specially designed instruction, but I think that it was meant to go somewhere else. I'll ask the creator of the content where they might have felt that it should go. But anyway, there's a link to DESE for you if you don't already know how to find DESE. There are some myths surrounding explicit instruction, and I'm not going to go through each one. I'm only going to speak about a few that I hear sometimes when I'm out in classrooms. So explicit instruction is much more than I do, we do, you do. That is definitely a part of the body of the lesson, okay, and that's good teaching practices. But explicit instruction is so much more intentional than just that I do, you do, we do cycle. So it's adding some intentionality to the lesson, having students know what they're going to learn and how they're going to be able to do that, and giving time for that practice. And it is not just drill and kill. There are programs that we use for instruction that do a lot of drilling, okay? And those programs may be direct instruction, and they only need some little tweaks to become explicit instruction. There's a nuance difference there. Explicit instruction, like I mentioned before, there's so much more intentionality to it. And if you look at the research for instructing kids with disabilities, explicit instruction really does work for them. Another thing that I hear sometimes is that it is too time consuming. Now, if you're using a program like corrective reading, number worlds, any of those programs that special school district has, they might have some components of explicit instruction, and they might be providing direct instruction. But again, it only takes a few little tweaks to really turn them into explicit. So I don't think that it's too time consuming. I think that explicit instruction is misunderstood. And when you look at the example lesson plan that I gave you, it looks like it's overwhelming because there's so much in it. But at the same time, you all do so many of these things already that it is just tweaking a little bit to make things explicit. Okay, and then also, in Pattonville, we do really push personalized learning, and that is great. And a lot of people do learn best through discovery and personalization and all that. But we have to look at the research behind what works for students with disabilities and how we can best educate them. And explicit instruction is definitely probably the main high leverage practice that we can use to instruct kids with disabilities to have positive outcomes for our students. Okay, explicit instruction is also culturally relevant because it provides high quality instruction for diverse learners. So within explicit instruction, there is a place for responsive feedback. There is a place for modeling. There is a place for instructional scaffolding. And so what I like to always say, and what I've heard many of you say before, is that a lot of the teaching practices that we use with special education students are very appropriate for all learners. Okay, and then we also know that our students with IEPs, they're a very diverse population anyway. So using explicit instruction benefits everybody. Okay, so why? Why do we use explicit instruction in special education? Well, here is a picture of the high leverage practices for students with disabilities, and it's organized in a visual that shows you that there's in the middle, there's the pillars. Okay, those are those practices that hold up the four areas, I guess I'll call them. Okay, and you can see circled is instruction and behavior and academics, and then before that, high leverage practice 7 and 16. 7 is a positive, organized and responsive learning environment. I like to call it a positive learning environment. And then there's also explicit instruction. And those two, 7 and 16, are the ones that we focus on in Academy. So then down under there, there's even more high leverage practices. But you can see that the two most important from the instruction piece, the blue, are HLP 7 and HLP 16. If you would like a copy of this visual, you can click on get a copy and one will pop up for you. And then also, if you did not receive your high leverage practices book from New Educator Orientation, please let me know. It's green. They probably did give it to you. I know you were getting a lot of stuff at that time. Just let me know because we have copies. And there's a picture of the book right here. It's the one on the far right. So explicit instruction is definitely supported by solid research. The first example here, if you would like a copy of the high leverage practices in special education, that is a digital download, very easy to get. Also, I have a copy of the explicit instruction book by Anita Archer, who is, Anita Archer was like one of the, I guess, foundational educators with this type of instruction. She, created a couple of programs that we still even use today in special school district. Anyway, interesting stuff. And then the high leverage practices for inclusive classrooms, that would be the book that they gave you at New Educator Orientation, and it goes very in depth with research and everything. So in your spare time, if you would like to have some extra reading materials about the research behind this, I can get you hooked up. Okay, so what does the research say? Okay, so for efficacy and cognitive load, it does show that explicit instruction leads to high levels of success and reinforcement and motivation, and I really do think that that is all because of the intentionality that explicit instruction provides. Also, it has a medium to large effect size for student learning, and that comes straight from Hattie's research. If you do not know who Hattie is, we can talk about him at one of the coaching visits. He's an educational researcher, done a lot, gathered tons and tons of data about it, and so explicit instruction has a medium to large effect size on student learning. It's also more effective than less direct strategies such as discovery learning, since explicit instruction is so, I keep using the word intentional. It's intentional. It definitely is purposeful, and so sometimes with other strategies, they're not like that. Not that the other strategies aren't good to incorporate, but I'm making the case for why explicit instruction is so important for our population of students. And the last thing is that explicit instruction reduces cognitive load, okay? Because it is broken down, and we are giving examples and going through I do, you do, we do, and we are taking time to check in and reinforce. It's not like throwing them a bunch of information at one time, and it's always tied to a very specific skill. So it helps them helps their brains not get overwhelmed by all the information. So why do we select and use this? Well, I said before that IDEA and ESSA mandate the use of research-based practices, and SSD has developed a research-based practices framework to ensure that our practices have appropriate levels of evidence for use. This is very much tied into why we vet all those educational programs that we are using in classrooms. Like, we really want those to be vetted to show that they are research based, that they do have good outcomes for students, so that we can really provide the best instruction and experience that we can for our students with disabilities. Also, explicit instruction has direct connections to the Missouri Educator Standards. These can be found, the whole list can be found on DESE's website. This is also linked to your teacher growth plan, and I know that I think all the teachers in Pattonville this year are linking their growth plan to the special education process, and that's fine. But just wanted you to know that direct or explicit instruction is linked directly to indicator 1.1 content knowledge and indicator 2.2 student learning, or 2.5. So that's just yet another way. We always try to build those connections so that we're not asking you to do these things just to do them. We're asking because it really is what is expected of us as special educators from Missouri, and it is really the best practices for kids. So we are going to go ahead and stop right there for this first video. If you have any questions about it, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am happy to answer your questions. And the next video, we're really going to go into the nitty-gritty about what it is, what are the parts of it, and then we're going to get into how to use it. So until next time, take care, and I hope that you enjoyed this riveting presentation by your instructional coach.